Welcome back to Radio Salado TX. We are here at the gorgeous Stagecoach Inn along these pristine creek banks of Salado Creek, right here in the heart of Texas. And on today's show, we have the honor and privilege of having a brief interview. It'll be sort of a preview into a further interview with the beloved and legendary historian and author, Carolyn Britt. And I first met Carolyn when I was not even 10 years old. She and her, with her brilliance and her creative husband, Darwin Britt, helped to build much of Main Street and preserve many of the historic sites here in Salado, and they also happened to build my childhood home. So without further ado, welcome Carolyn Britt. She's also one of the co-founders of the Save Salado Creek Founders Committee. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today too in this sort of preview interview. How are you today in this Texas heat?
Well, I'm surviving with a hat.
I should also say that when I invited her to the show today, she didn't know that I was going to be putting her on camera. So here we sit today in all of our sweaty glory for you, Central Texas. And of course, she comes in looking like a dream after I've been up here sweating all day. It's really hard for me to pinpoint when I first fell in love with yours and Darwin's work. You've had a furniture store here. You all have built, we lovingly refer to his work and your collaboration with him and so many artists here as folk building. Can you help the folks at home understand a little bit more about like what brought y'all here and how folk building in Salado came to be?
Well, that's what he called himself because he was not an architect. But we had both been really interested in older methods of construction for some time. In fact, when he was still in corporate life, we were attracted to something called the Shelter Institute, which taught people how to build their own homes from the ground up. And the book was called From the Ground Up. And it promoted the idea of pier and beam foundation, post and beam construction, and some really simple points about orienting the house towards sun angles and prevailing winds and so forth. So all of that went into what plans came out of anything that we were building. And so Darwin had been with IBM for about 13 years, and we decided to leave corporate life. And he said there was nobody he admired up ahead of him and no position he aspired to, so it was time to leave. And
you had 2 daughters then, or 3?
3.
You had 3 daughters then. Mm-hmm.
And so when we did that, we would tell friends we didn't know where we were going to go or what we were going to do, but one thing for sure, we were never going back to Texas.
Little did you know.
And then our dear friend Bryant Rees called us, and he said, I think I know where you need to be. And when he told us, I said, that's probably the only place in Texas that I would really want to live. And so it wound up that we bought Barton House in 13 acres and then bought the material out of the buildings in Santa Ana and
the famous historic Barton House, which you lived in.
Oh, yeah, we did. That was our home for a few years. And then we built Salado Square using material out of 3 19th century buildings that were in Santa Ana, Texas. And Darwin and Lonnie Edwards, an incredible talent, went over there and took photographs of the buildings, numbered everything. All the major stones he numbered, they measured everything carefully, dismantled them, brought them over, and used the best components of the 3 buildings to build the initial 2 that started Salado Square. And by then, we were committed to Salado. We loved there's just a whole spirit about Salado that we did.
And the creek was your backyard?
Oh, yeah, and the girls would go down there. And, I was born and reared in Dallas, so I was a real city girl. And I thought, well, I could be.
You're pretty darn tough for any city girl.
Well,
mindset
you can be tough
that you might be referring to.
But I decided that I couldn't be overprotective.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And so I just said, well, when you go in the tall grass, wear shoes and take the dog. And don't reach or step anywhere that you can't see because they were all over that
Sure,
dry
and
creek.
snakes. And,
Yeah. And so the first spring that
in the dry creek bed especially.
Yeah. And the first spring that we were there, the fire chief from Belton called and said, can we be on your property to do a rattlesnake roundup?
There's a phrase that'll wake you up.
And I said, yes, of course. And he called me later and he said, well, we were down on the dry creek. And he said, we run hoses into the crevices to gas them out, because they turned the motors on the car and the exhaust fumes would drive the snake down. And he said, and we got a granddaddy of them all. It was over 7 feet long. I was delighted. But anyway, that was kind
horrified and delighted, probably.
Yeah,
I would guess.
So that was our
as a mother
introduction, in a way, to Central Texas. And before it was all over, we had seen every poisonous snake on the property. Coral snakes, water moccasins, rattlesnakes, copperheads, all of that we had seen on our property. And you just kind of learn to live with it. But the creek was...
Feels like the universe was asking you, how much do you really love Texas?
But the girls loved that creek, and they would go down and play on it. And even years later, when I was probably old enough to know better, my sister and I would float that creek on tractor tire inner tubes.
Oh.
So it was, it's really been a part of
those memories.
Yeah, they're great.
And part of the fabric of just their childhood and your era as a young mother. And
yeah, and I think one of the things I loved about it is the heritage that came with it, because people had come here from Virginia and Kentucky and Tennessee, and they established Salado College, and it was the first private nonprofit co-ed college west of the Mississippi. And as the mother of 3 daughters, I love that. And I just felt like,
to you.
Yeah, it really did. So between that and the early peoples who lived here, I just think it has a kind of a spiritual heritage that we appreciate.
Yeah, and those ruins that you're talking about from that liberal arts college, Salado College, the first co-ed college west of Mississippi.
Private, nonprofit co-ed.
Those ruins sit today just south of the Central Texas Museum here in Salado, Texas, across from the historic Stagecoach Inn. And there are efforts underway to help preserve that those ruins and the land around it even further. So that's something certainly to stay tuned for. Carolyn and I first met because, like I was saying at the beginning of the show today, they built my childhood home, and we moved from the YO Ranch when I was 9 years old, and I did not want to leave. Dug my boots in the ground, was not leaving that YO Ranch. It was all I knew. But my mother's side of the family is from Bell County, and my grandmother was not doing very well at the time. We needed to be closer to her, and so we walked in. I had the privilege of walking in a Darwin and Carolyn Britt home when I was 9 years old, and they happened to be living in that house at the time, and it was, and still is today, something out of a fairy tale book and beyond. It's for words won't do it justice, but brought so much of my imagination to life, because it was like living in a portal of a treehouse. When she says that, that they really were focusing on how the angles of light dance in a room and things of that nature, it's so true. And I know that it has infused my creative trajectory just growing up in a Darwin and Carolyn Britt house. So thank you so much for that. Words will never do it justice. And, Salado's so blessed to have so much of the work and creative efforts that y'all pioneered here. Can you speak a little bit to some of the other artists that y'all collaborated with along the way?
Well, of course, Lonnie was very much a part of that, but also Joe Pihoski.
Lonnie, for those who don't know.
Lonnie Edwards. Who with Darwin, began that whole enterprise and continued with it for a while. And then Darwin was kind of also the business manager. So he had the left lobe and the right lobe of his brain spoke. They communicated with one another. So he was the business person for that. But we also were involved with Joe Pihoski, who was a wonderful, wonderful iron artisan, and Bryant Reeves, who's a well-known and respected Texas artist, And then there were authors who were here, like Elizabeth Silverthorne, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some others. James Papel was a wonderful wood turner. And when we had our furniture shop, we had examples of all of those people's work. Not Elizabeth's, but,
I remember your furniture shop. I can remember the light coming in. I mean, those beautiful kind of cantilever windows that y'all would put on all of your homes, and and the creaky floors. I don't remember what kind of wood they were, but and
they were probably longleaf pine.
And how each furniture piece had its own sort of soul to it.
Yeah.
Just as a small child, I could pick up on that and how rare and special that was. And as I've adventured beyond Salado across the last couple of decades, realizing more and more how precious and special your furniture store was, and the efforts here that y'all have, created and devoted your lives to. You're also an author.
Well, a little tiny one, but.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've written? For those at home, I know, but they may not.
Okay, well, I wrote a lullaby for my grandson when he was little, and they were living in San Angelo. So I wrote a little poem called The Wind Bandits, and I took it to Linda Griffith and Richard Paul Thomas, and I said, I have gotten Lonnie Edwards to do the pen and ink illustrations for this, and they're wonderful, and I'd like to make a little book out of it. And so Richard looked at it, and I said, can you put this to music? And he did, and Linda did put the whole thing together, and so it's now for sale over at the Salado Museum. And then following that...
That title, by the way, y'all, is The Wind Bandits. Is there ever a better title? I don't think so.
And then the other little book that I wrote was a lullaby for my granddaughter, Carolyn. And
Your namesake?
Yeah, right. And I asked Richard if he could put that to music, and he did a beautiful job of that. Now, Richard sang The Wind Bandits, and he's got a wonderful voice, so it comes across.
I've heard it. It's lovely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then he made me sing, me with my croaky voice, to sing Carolyn's lullaby, which was another fanciful little thing. So that's it.
So wonderful. So if folks want to get a glimpse into that music and those books, they would find the book at the Salado Museum.
Yeah, and they're both on YouTube. I didn't know that. Richard was so clever, and he put them up there on YouTube. He's
a beloved musician here in town, Richard Paul Thomas.
So
we met because y'all built my childhood home. Lucky me. There are no words. But we rekindled and got to know each other. We rekindled our friendship and got to know each other much better here in the last year because of our love. Our mutual love of Salado Creek.
Yeah.
And we learned in February that for those who don't know, we learned in February as a community that TCEQ was holding a public hearing where we came to understand that our creek might be in danger of remaining safe for the families who live and visit here. And so together, Carolyn and I formed an organization called Save Salado Creek. You can find more info by hopping on savesaladocreek.org with 4 other women. So there's 6 not very wallflower-like women who have come together to help preserve our creek alongside many other volunteers and beloved souls here in this community and beyond who happen to love Salado Creek. And so October 1st, we are launching our inaugural concert for the Creek, where Michael Martin Murphy is headlining, beloved singer-songwriter and conservationist, on October 1st at Tin Rock. And I know you've got some stories around Michael Martin Murphy, or at least a local tale or two. So do you want to maybe share that with our friends at home?
I hope it's okay for me to mention names, but
I think you'll be okay in this case.
Okay. Joe Pihoski is this wonderful talent who when he was practicing, he was well known in Europe as well as here, and did many interesting and celebrity homes and so forth with his iron artisan work. But he found out that Michael Martin Murphy was going to be presenting this concert on the 1st of October, and he said, back in the day when he was living in California and probably living pretty much out of a backpack. When he heard Michael Martin Murphy's first album, he went out with his few pennies that he could rub together and bought that album and listened to it every chance he could and carried it around with him in his backpack. And he said it was really sad the day that album broke. I just thought
I can relate.
I just think that was the most wonderful story, and I want Michael Martin Murphy to hear it.
Well, hopefully, maybe he'll tune into this show. If not, we'll make sure he hears it on October 1st. What do we want to say to folks at home regarding that concert and that we're holding for the creek? And our hope that they'll attend and be a part of this mission to help save our precious creek waters.
I think one of the most exciting things about it is the number of people that are already have already formed support, either for the fundraiser, the Michael Martin Murphy fundraiser, or for the Save the Salado Creek effort in and of itself, businesses and individuals. And our founders are Joyce Pennington and Linda Griffiths, Jody Askins, Kathy Sands, Tiffany Schreiner, and me. And we've just been buoyed up by all the support from the community. Mm-hmm. So it's wonderful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is. And to recognize our various skill sets within our founders community and our volunteer committees that we're forming. I mean, so many talented and devoted folks.
Yeah, it's really true.
It's astounding, really.
We're going to have some wonderful artwork at the silent auction. Local artists that whose work we really love. So it'll be fun too.
Some of it quite rare. Some of them one-of-a-kind pieces.
Yeah.
We actually earlier this week we recorded with another beloved artist, Texas artist. He does not live in Salado, but he adores Salado, by the name of Brandon Massey. And on the show live, he said, "I want to donate a painting," as soon as he heard about our creek efforts. Wonderful. So, I mean, it's just kind of everywhere around the bend. But that's not to say that this is going to be a one-done event and the creek will be saved. This will be a multi-generational endeavor, folks. So, stay tuned. Come to some of the meetings. We'd love to have you. They're happening monthly and sometimes more often. If you hop on SaveSaladoCreek.org, you'll find out all the info there. And we have Instagram and Facebook as well. I have 2 questions that I ask, and I want to do a much more in-depth conversation with you here on the show when you have more time. But there are 2 questions, and I'm going to ask you this probably again next time I see you on the show. So, and the answers do not have to match because our love of Texas is, wide and deep and vast. So, my first question is when you and you and I share love of Mary Oliver's poetry and Wendell Berry's writings and so many other mutual loves that you and I share, birds of Texas, etc., native plants of Texas, and our precious creek. But when you think about the phrase true blue Texan, what does it mean to be a true blue Texan woman in your heart and mind?
I have to think about that.
You can come back with another answer next time if you'd like, but if there's something that's speaking to you now, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I think love of family and love of land probably come together pretty quickly, or love of community and love of family, and always faith. I mean, expressed in different ways, of course, but all of that kind of comes together for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the phrase "it takes a village" comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
I shared this on one of our recent shows, but I want to share it with you, especially. I was reading something the other day. It was, online, but they were referencing a book, and I don't know the name of the book. I'm going to have to find it. It was a little girl's voiceover, and all you saw was in the imagery, it was sort of, you couldn't tell what it was at first, but then you began to realize she was running through a field of wildflowers because you saw hair and boots and, a little girl. And then the voiceover spoke, and it said, "I used to believe that I had to choose between being beautiful or being brave. And then I put on my first pair of cowgirl boots, and I realized I didn't have to choose any longer." And to me, that really speaks to the heart of true blue Texan. All right, so we here in the heart of Central Texas have a certain affinity for our creek, Salado Creek. when you think about your calling, your purpose in helping preserve these creek waters, what are some of the memories at Salado Creek that are just sort of in your bones and speak to you in terms of helping you and our founders committee for Save Salado Creek persevere?
Oddly enough, I guess it would be watercress. What I had learned was that when Dr. Barton came, of course, that's whose home we bought.
Barton House, yes.
But when Dr. Barton and some of the others came from the east, from Virginia and Kentucky and Tennessee, some of them brought watercress and planted it along the creek because they loved it. And when we first came here, I would find watercress growing along the creek. And the girls and I would take watercress and wild onions. And sometimes I would make what I call the springtime soup. And it would be with wild onions and watercress and, of course, chicken broth and stuff.
Oh, I want that recipe.
Well, it's just something made up out of my head.
Well, let's hear it, like, for the folks at home. It was chicken broth.
Yeah, you saute the onions and add the watercress and then add some chicken broth and flavoring. And it was just kind of fun and fresh. And, we felt self-reliant.
You called it springtime soup?
Yeah, I guess so. That's what I called it in my head anyway. But what I loved was that we were benefiting from that legacy. And that's what I want to think, that we are going to be forwarding a legacy of preservation of the creek. One of the reasons it's so compelling to me is that Texas has over 4,000 named waterways. That could be a bayou, it could be a creek, a river, a pond, a spring, whatever, but they're named. There's about 4,000 of them, and less than 40 are still pristine. And that's pretty embarrassing. It's shaming. We just have not been paying attention.
It's telling.
Yeah, and so we really need to get better and do better, and we will.
We can, and we are. When we know better, we do better. And
It's
we're certainly giving it our all.
That's true.
It is. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
You're so welcome.
Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners at home regarding the creek, or where they can find your book, or any other exciting thing we've got going on?
I'm not interested in that, but I am interested in people really understanding that this is an ongoing threat that our waterways are facing, and that's because there's so many people coming. We want good new neighbors, but we need thoughtful development of any installation of a development in anywhere in Texas, but certainly along our waterways. That's what I'm seeing.
And for the sake of this show, specifically Salado Creek. So jump in, join the effort when you can. Not only will you be helping preserve these creek waters, but you'll be meeting wonderful souls who will come alongside you in so many endeavors. We've met so many beautiful people through this endeavor already, like-minded and heart-driven folks. So thank you for being here today. It is beyond an honor. She is a celebrity Saladoan, and I have the honor of calling her friend. So Carolyn Britt, y'all. Radio Salado, Texas comes to you through all of your favorite streaming apps, and very soon you can hop on our new website and certainly follow us on Instagram at Radio Salado TX. We'll see y'all down the trails. Thanks, y'all.
Great.